So, are we as a species naturally peaceful? Or is there something darker, something more violent, baked into our DNA from our evolutionary past? Well, today we're diving into a really provocative idea that looks for the answers in a place you might not expect. Not by looking at us, but at our closest animal relatives.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This is from the book Demonic Males, and it paints this picture of human history not as just a series of tragic mistakes, but as the end result of an ancient, unbroken habit of killing. It's a really challenging idea, for sure, but it makes you ask a very important question. Where would a habit like that even come from?
Okay, so let's unpack this theory. It was put forward by the primatologist Richard Rankum, and it suggests that a very specific kind of violence isn't some bug in our system, but actually a key feature of our evolutionary inheritance, an inheritance we share with one of our closest relatives.
Now, to really get this, we have to be super specific about the kind of violence we're talking about. This isn't about just any old aggression, no. The theory focuses on something called proactive or coalitionary aggression. Think of it as cold-blooded, planned violence carried out by a group with a very clear goal in mind.
Right.
So this difference is absolutely crucial. On one hand, you have reactive aggression. That's your hot-headed fight, the kind that just erupts in the heat of the moment. You see it all over the animal kingdom. But proactive aggression? That's totally different. It's strategic, it's cooperative, and it is incredibly rare. In fact, among primates, you only really see it consistently in two species, us and chimpanzees.
And that, right there, brings us to our evolutionary cousins. You see, the entire foundation of this demonic male theory is built on decades and decades of watching chimpanzees in the wild. And what we've seen provides a stunning, and often a pretty disturbing mirror to our own behavior.
What does this look like in the wild? Well, male chimpanzees form these tight-knit groups, these coalitions, that patrol the edges of their territory. And if they happen to find a lone individual from a neighboring group, they will attack and kill them. Their society is also a rigid patriarchy. Males use systematic violence to control females, making sure that no adult male is ever subordinate to a female.
But why? Is this just mindless brutality? The theory says no. It proposes a kind of cold evolutionary logic to explain it all, and it's called the imbalance of power hypothesis. The idea is, it's not about loving a fight, it's about loving an easy win with basically zero risk. So how does this actually work? It all starts with their unique social structure, which is called fission-fusion. All that means is that the main community is always splitting up into smaller groups and then getting back together. This creates these totally unpredictable numbers at their borders. So a patrol of, say, 10 chimps might just stumble upon a single rival. And for them, the math is simple. The risk of attacking is almost zero, but the potential reward, getting rid of a competitor, gaining territory, is huge. It's a horribly effective strategy.
But hold on. If that strategy is so great, and if it's in our shared DNA, then what about our other closest relative? This is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Because bonobos, well, bonobos are a whole different story.
I mean, just look at this contrast. It's night and day. Chimps have lethal rating. Bonobos don't. Chimps have this absolute male dominance. And bonobos, it's pretty limited. So what's the secret ingredient? Well, it seems to be that bonobo females form these incredibly powerful coalitions that males just can't bully their way through.
So, how did the bonobos figure this out? How'd they find this path to peace? The theory points to a couple of brilliant evolutionary workarounds. First, those powerful female alliances we just talked about. They created a force that males just couldn't steamroll. And second, they developed this really unique way of handling social stress. They use frequent, non-reproductive sex to build bonds and just kind of chill everyone out. But, science never just stands still. And some really recent research has added a surprising new wrinkle to our understanding of the so-called hippie ape. And believe it or not, it actually makes the demonic male theory even more interesting.
Okay, get this. A 2024 study came out with a real shocker. Male bonobos are actually aggressive more often than male chimps. They chase and push and bite each other more frequently. But, and this is the absolute key, their aggression is way less intense. It almost never, ever becomes lethal.
So what on earth does that mean? It means the potential for aggression, that impulse. It's still there in bonobos. It exists. But their social structure, with those powerful female alliances at the center, it acts like a powerful brake. It stops that everyday, low-level aggression from ever spiraling up into the organized, deadly raiding that we see in chimps.
Now, of course, we have to be fair. The demonic male theory isn't the only idea out there. Other models suggest that human violence is really just a response to things like not having enough food. And some theories even argue that humans evolved to cooperate first and that war is a much more recent cultural invention. So the debate is definitely still raging.
So after all this talk about our ape cousins, let's bring it all back home. If we really do have this ancient impulse, this thing we inherited millions of years ago, what are we supposed to do about it?
Right away, the most common criticism people have of this theory is that it sounds fatalistic. They hear it and think, oh great, so violence is just in our genes and there's nothing we can do. Like it's some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card for horrible behavior.
But that's a total misreading of the main idea. The authors are really clear. Pointing out a biological tendency is not the same as saying it's our destiny. In fact, they argue the exact opposite. Knowing where the impulse comes from is the critical first step to being able to consciously build systems to keep it in check.
And here is the great paradox of being human. The very same brain power that gives us art and science and global cooperation, that's also what makes our violence so uniquely destructive. Our ability to plan, to use language, to build technology. It takes the chimp's small-scale raid and it amplifies it into modern industrial-scale warfare.
And this brings us right back to the hopeful lesson from our peaceful cousins. The ultimate takeaway here is a political one. The bonobos seem to show us that the key to shutting down lethal violence is the social structure itself. By building societies that share power more equally, especially between men and women, we can create the very conditions that make our ancient, demonic impulses basically useless.
So in the end, we're left with this profound challenge. This theory suggests that evolution has handed us a pretty dangerous impulse, a 5-million-year-old habit of lethal aggression. So the ultimate question becomes, did the same evolution that gave us this problem also give us the tool to solve it? Our own intelligence?